Guys, I'm just about to go to bed and I thought I would record another video. Pardon my voice, I'm kind of losing my voice. My allergies are pretty bad today and I hate it. But I'm going to try to speak louder so you can hear me. I'm going to make this very quick. I'm wrapping up the Criterion DVDs and going into my random classic movies that I have on DVD. Before tomorrow, I'm going to start on my Severin and Arrow and all of my other specialty labels, and you guys should enjoy that. But I'm just going to dive in. It's going to be kind of hard to see because I'm at the very bottom shelf on the floor, but I'm going to dive in. I'm going to start with Kwaidan. This is a Japanese horror film set in feudal Japan. It was made in the 1960s. Very beautiful, very colorful film. If your only frame of reference for Japanese horror movies is stuff like The Ring and The Grudge, this is a far cry from that. These had a pageantry to them, and they're based on Japanese folklore. So if you watch films like this or Koroniko, or Onibaba is another one. If you watch these feudal era Japanese horror films, you can learn a lot about Japanese folklore through them. This is on the based on just a book called Kwaidan by Lafcadio Hearn, I believe is his name. He was a folklorist who collected Japanese folklore and compiled them into a book. And this is based on some of those stories. The best one, there's one called The Lady in the Snow, which is about a snow yokai. If you've ever seen the movie Tales from the Dark Side, there's a segment with the gargoyle in it. It is lifted directly from this, but it's not as good. This is one of the most beautiful horror movies ever made. So if you like that story, but you want to see it with all the pageantry and majesty of a Japanese horror film from this era, I highly recommend this. I actually need to upgrade this. It was released on Blu-ray with extra footage, and considering how beautiful this movie is, it would be worth the upgrade, but I'm stuck with this for now. But very much recommended. Another one is The Ruling Class, starring Peter O'Toole. This has not been released on on Blu-ray yet, but really good political social commentary about how crappy the upper class is, and unfortunately, nothing has changed since this movie was made. So it is just as relevant now as it was then, but I don't want to go too deep into it because there's a twist at the end that is just brilliant. But this is a strange movie. There are random musical numbers in this, and it perfectly takes advantage of how kind of flamboyant and over the top and fun Peter O'Toole could be. He's wonderful in everything, but I really enjoyed him in this movie. He's a delight. He plays dual roles, kind of, and he's a lot of fun in both. But the beginning of the movie, he plays Jesus, and his Jesus stand-in is really wonderful. Worth the price of admission alone just to watch Peter O'Toole being weird. But anyway, next one is Haxan. This is another one I should probably get on Blu-ray. This is a silent film, one part horror film and one part documentary about the history. Tongue-tied. The history of witchcraft. It was made in 1922. There are some really unique visuals in this movie that are completely original and horrifying. They remind me of those old woodcuts that you would see, depicting like scenes of witchcraft and stuff, but brought to life, mixed with a bit of Dante's Inferno. Very unique movie. But like I said, one part documentary, so it gives you kind of a rundown on the history of witchcraft, but also it is a horror movie at the same time, and it is one of the best horror films of the 1920s. So if you're just getting into silent horror, this would be one that I would recommend. Haxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages. It's really great. This is a beautiful movie too. In the Mood for Love. This is another one I should probably upgrade on Blu-ray. It's just a really good, beautiful, tragic romance stuff. So if you like melancholy,
films that are really melancholy, but beautiful. In the Mood for Love is one of the most beautiful movies of the 2000s. It's really great. Just gonna try to speed it up. Speaking of Onibaba, here's Onibaba. This is another Japanese horror film of the 60s. Again, not on Blu-ray, but you should definitely check this one out. It is really just an unnerving film. It doesn't have the bright colors of Quaidan. It's actually black and white, but the black and white cinematography is really gorgeous. So you should check that out too. This is my favorite horror film of all time. Another one that I should probably upgrade, but Georges Franju's Eyes Without a Face. This is one of the most influential horror movies ever made. Really gothic, bathed in shadow, really tragic. This is how I like my horror movies. I like my horror movies to be more sad than scary, and this one definitely falls into that, where it's just really melancholy. And I like that. I like my tragedy in my horror films, but it's also just stunning black and white photography. And yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it. This is another one I need to upgrade. Ingmar Bergman's Fanny and Alexander. This is the theatrical cut. I need to get the Blu-ray because it has the TV cut, which is twice as long, and I'm ashamed that I don't have it, and I've actually never seen it, so that needs to happen. Getsu. Here's another one I need to upgrade is Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows. This is part of their Essential Art House collection, so it's the movie. It's just the movie. It doesn't have the special features. And same with Kira Kurosawa's Rashomon. I have that Essential Art House. These are two that I need to upgrade. Getting into my sets, I really like these, and some of these I really wish Criterion would just put out as like a separate release, like a real release with special features. This is my favorite of them that I have. It's Pearls of the Czech New Wave Eclipse series. The movie to get it for is Daisies. Really strange movie that kind of one of the pillars of Czech cinema of the time, along with Valerie and her Week of Wonders. But yeah, I really wish that one would get a solo release. But it's a really cool set, regardless. This is a neat one too. It's a little beat up, but when horror came to Shakichiku, it's just a bunch of weird Japanese horror movies that were too bizarre, I guess, to get their own release. I got it for the X from Outer Space, which is a really cool kaiju movie with a monster called Gilala, one of the stranger Japanese monsters. Okay, and that's the end of my Criterion. I have some silent movies right in here, which I'm not going to get into. And then my David Lynch movies, which you guys have all seen David Lynch movies, so I'm not going to really talk about them. And then it goes into my film noir, which I don't have a lot of. I should have more, but I don't. And then my Alfred Hitchcock movies on DVD. Most of them I'm really ashamed to say I only have on VHS. Like I said, I'm very bad about upgrading. And then my Westerns. Big fan of Italian Westerns. Oh, and then I have a bunch of these random like TCM Greatest Classic sets. A couple of them I haven't even opened. I'm terrible about that sometimes. If something's cheap, I'll just buy it, and then randomly at the end is Amelie, which I really like, but I'm trying to find a Western that I want to talk about. Let's talk about Once Upon a Time in the West. This is my favorite Western. It is Sergio Leone, and I'm sure you guys have all seen this. This is another one I need to get on Blu-ray. But yeah, it's just it's a masterpiece of cinematography with the great Morricone score. It's very minimalistic. It's about 3 hours long and 20 minutes of plot, but it's all about mood and yeah, it's just some of the best visual storytelling you're ever going to see in a movie. So if you haven't seen this for whatever reason, I don't know why you haven't, but or if you've just never seen a western, this is a good one to watch. It's all emotion and mood. Um, but of course, the Dollar Trilogy is really great too because those are masterpieces. My OCD is really kicking in, but that's about it with this shelf. Really, I'm gonna wrap this one up, and I hope you guys have a nice day. And tomorrow I've got Severin and Vinegar Syndrome, and I'll be sure to have a lot of fun with those. Bye bye.